Do you know what the silver anniversary is?
Silver. Well,
So different anniversaries have different things that are associated to them. Yeah.
Right. Because there's bronze, right? And then it's silver, and then it's gold.
And diamonds, and there's
so if it's
other
silver,
stuff. There's like paper, and yeah.
I'm going to guess that silver is 25th.
You got it. How did you know?
Really, I don't know how I knew that.
25th. Maybe 25th. We choose this number to observe on this episode of The Heart of the Cards because it's the 25th anniversary of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, which brought us together in a lot of different ways.
Wow, 25 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I know that there are a lot of people out there listening that love playing the game, that have watched the show. We may have some listeners that don't know Yu-Gi-Oh! I suppose there might be a small percentage of that. Those two sitting in the corner they're like, what? What are you talking about?
Right.
But we owe so much to being a part of this community. And that all started for us a while back, not exactly 25 years ago. But today on this episode, we're going to celebrate and relish and honor and admire what an amazing community it is that we all get to be a part of. And it's been going on for 25 years, and it seems like it's going strong.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. I'm glad that that's going to be today's topic. I'm looking forward to doing that. A toast to the toast to the amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game and everything else Yu-Gi-esque.
Excellent. Well, shall we?
Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Heart of the Cards, a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt.
Hey, this is Dan Green.
And Eric Stuart.
And this is episode 36 of The Heart of the Cards, the 25th anniversary of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game.
Exciting. I'm excited.
Me too, and people have been excited about it for a quarter century, I suppose.
25 years. That's incredible. It really is.
That's like a human being. You become a human being in that time.
Well, I'm still the guy that says the other day when I mean something in the 80s. Right?
Yeah.
So when you say, "Oh yeah, we've been involved in this amazing journey with Yu-Gi-Oh," you think, well, it's been a couple of years. It's been around 10, 15. Wait, it's been how many? That's incredible. It's also incredible to me that there is such a amazing community around it, from those that grew up maybe reading the manga, or then moving on to playing the card game, to then watching the show. I mean, there's not a lot of properties that have so many branches of the different things you can do, in the Yu-Gi-Oh! World.
For sure.
That are all interesting to me. I mean, there's something for everyone in at least those three categories.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and being a part of this community is something I've really only come to understand relevantly better in the last couple of years, making more frequent appearances with you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've made appearances before, and certainly that was an insight, but the ability to meet so many people that are so passionate about it is really such a treasure. And and as you know, and as some of the listeners know, I'm a huge comic book fan.
Mm-hmm.
And while manga is not exactly comics, they're much more similar than they are different. And I have huge respect for artists in that field. And that Kazuki Takahashi was able to create something that is so compelling and interesting and fun and a little dangerous, and so many of the things that he brought to the page with ink and his imagination is really something I find extraordinary. And he did that more than 25 years ago, actually. According to what I found on the internets, the first issue of his manga, well, actually, it was part of the Shonen Jump they have a collection of stories in that. But so it first appeared in that in Shonen Jump in 1996 in September. Yeah. Yeah. Which was like 96, and we recorded in 2001. So yeah, that was, 5 years
I was told
later,
there'd be no math,
we were
so
doing
don't.
that.
Yeah.
You always use that line.
I know.
But that was going to debut in September of 2001. Our dub, the dub we're in.
Yes.
And it's just crazy to think that, that Sensei Takahashi's going from wondering if this manga is going to be popular enough to, get a longer run in Shonen Jump,
Right.
to it then becoming a card game,
Yeah.
and then becoming an animated series in Japan,
Right.
which we call anime, and then it becomes something that we get to be a part of because the audience has grown so large. They want voices from other languages to contribute to the storytelling.
Yeah, and what's also interesting to me is that there are many shows or many properties that try to follow the same template.
Sure,
right?
It's like their success. Let's repeat it.
Right, and I mean, not because we work on one of these branches of a successful, part of the journey for the Yu-Gi-Oh world, but honestly, you have a successful manga, you have a successful card game, and a successful show.
Mm-hmm.
And each one of them stands on its own.
And they're not all identical to each other.
They're not. And then you put them together in terms of that sort of the umbrella of everything under Yu-Gi-Oh! And, there is something for everyone. I mean, we've run into fans at the conventions who are big fans of the anime, but really don't play the card game. And then there's those that play the card game, that don't really watch the anime much, or, I like the manga, or maybe it's they like two of the three, or sometimes it's they like all three. But it's like, I know you've been to the tournaments. You and I have both been there. We've done the live duels, which has been a lot of fun. But it's both intense, right? Because they take it very seriously.
The concentration.
So it's like, right? But it's also like, it's one of those competitions that also seems to be like lighthearted and fun. There's that it's like both sides of that, as intense as it is. And for those of you who have never witnessed one of our live duels, and you can easily find those online. But while we're performing those duels, the audience, who are the duelists, right, the ones that are competing, they get a break to come and watch this with us, or watch us perform this. They're cheering and they're like, oh man, you played that, and it's this interactive thing. I've never experienced anything like that. It's like interactive theater.
Yeah. This reminds me of the first time I ever did a live duel. It might have been the first time they did a live duel. I'm not sure. But it was with Greg in Pittsburgh. And we had no idea what to expect. Greg and I had been on stage together back in Rutgers. So, we were very comfortable being on stage together. Not that it was exactly a stage, but anyway. And we rehearsed it, and then when it came to the actual doing of it, we had no way of anticipating just this wave of enthusiasm and emotion. And when, somebody would play, a card and turn the tables, and just like you said, there'd be like this, like the Super Bowl, which was just yesterday. And extraordinary amount of passion for sure.
Yeah, and then you add in the fans of the anime and those that have connected with the characters and have really understand the dynamic of how the characters interact with each other, and even just the interest in maybe becoming an artist or becoming a writer or learning.
It inspires so many things.
And that's really cool too. And I have to say that
I haven't shared this with you, but actually my involvement with the show has inspired me to become a pharaoh. I'm working at it.
Mine
Brick
is to
by-
become a multi-billionaire.
I think you have a better shot.
Oh, no. But what's interesting to me about the Yu-Gi-Oh series is that the storylines and the when you strip away all of the monsters fighting and all of this, the
Sure.
core of the
Not that
message.
that's garbage, but yeah.
No,
but beyond that, there's other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's definitely we've seen things in our lifetime where it's been like, well, that's the whipped cream because there's no substance there. But when when you strip away some of that, you still are left with this really like there's always a good message and there's redeemable qualities about all of these characters and the fact that also it's not preachy, but there's a moral, and I love that about the show. But I also think that it rings true because of the amount of feedback we get years later. Adults that come up to us at the conventions and say, I just went back and I watched the show again with my kids, and
This
my
comes
goodness.
up. This actually comes up. Yeah.
And there's something very special about that for a series to be timeless like that. And really, I'm not saying that because I play one of the coolest characters in that series. I'm saying that because it truly is. Like, I have to admit this. So someone said to me the other day, oh, yeah, I've been watching all of the old Yu-Gi-Oh! From the beginning on, I've been streaming it. And I was like, really? Okay, that's kind of cool. And I went on to one of the streaming services. I don't need to promote them. They're not paying as a sponsor. I saw that they had all of the seasons that you and I, 6 seasons or something like that?
I don't know.
And every episode, we're listed as the stars, which was like kind of like, I was like, wow, they actually paid attention to that.
Wow.
And there's a little synopsis for each episode with like a thumbnail. And I
Really?
thought, yeah. And I started to just
catch up. On this.
and so I started to not watch each episode, but just scroll down through
Right.
the storylines.
Right.
And then I was like, I remember that one. Oh, that's a really cool one. And then I put it on for a second just to see a piece of it and go, this is fun. Like I worked so hard as the director on so many of those seasons.
I was going to ask, did you have flashbacks of what it was like? Oh, I remember this. Oh, that line.
Yes,
that line that took 20 minutes to get out.
Yeah, well, that was only when we were working together. No, it's
really hard to say those things fast.
I had the little bit of the flashback that way, but I also felt like I had reached the point, and maybe it's because it's coming up on almost 25 years for the series as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'd reached that point where I was like, I want to watch this from the beginning.
Right.
I want to revisit this and watch it.
We've talked about doing that for YouTube.
But it's really cool to see it like that. Not at the back of some video store or tucked away somewhere, or how do you find it buried somewhere and online somewhere. No, this was like every episode from every season accessible, and I was like, this is definitely something I'm going to spend some time revisiting.
For a show that was never going to be as popular as Pokemon,
no,
it's done okay and it's stuck around.
Yes.
Yeah. And obviously the story continues. There's, more iterations of Yu-Gi-Oh! Happening all the time. And it's wonderful that such fine actors and Darren, at the helm, is bringing those stories to life. But it is also nice to see that the thing that kicked it all off, it still has a place.
Sure.
Even today, which is extraordinary.
Yeah, and when you're in the trenches like that, the way that we were and the schedule that we kept to keep the thing on, on schedule on air, you don't always have a chance to really just sit back and, enjoy it.
Oh, no.
But I feel like now we could. I feel like now, and it makes sense to do that. Like having a Yu-Gi-Oh! Watch party.
I was looking over, there's this short series called The Gokusen, and it was something I did with NYAV Post, and it was one of those things where I got to direct and adapt the script, so I really understood the moments I was talking about with the actors, and had a great cast.
Uh-huh.
And I rewatched part of one episode because I was able to find it on YouTube, and it's really amazing how how so much can be encapsulated in something that you worked on, and it brought back so many memories. And speaking of a wonderful cast, so many of the people that are our dear friends were cast members initially, and then became dear friends. I mean, I was already great friends with Greg,
Right.
And Tony, but I was becoming friends with Wayne. And as
Yeah.
I've mentioned many times, if I hadn't met Wayne, I wouldn't have met my wife and have the children I have today. So
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing how much that working on that show changed our lives. It really did.
Yeah.
We've both worked on a bunch of different things,
And it's still changing our lives.
yeah, and there's
But
some things that
keep saying what you were saying. Yeah.
I was going to say we both worked on a bunch of different things, and some of them, we've definitely worked on some projects where we really enjoy it, but it doesn't become a commercial success, so that it
Right,
disappears, right?
Sure.
And then we've also worked on things that are commercial successes where we don't understand how they are. But what's great about this is, it's definitely a series I am proud of. I am proud of the cast. I mean, there's definitely, that's an A team right there.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right. And also, like, if someone says, well, what should I watch if I want to see some of your work? It's like, just watch some Seto Kaiba. Like, just watch some Seto Kaiba. I mean, to me, that is a character that I can live and breathe. It's like I feel so connected to it, and thanking Takahashi for that, creating this very multi-dimensional character.
Yeah, a conversation at a recent appearance went along the lines of, "Do you miss playing these characters?" And I do, but I don't, because when we are there interacting with people, those characters come up.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
How many
Good
lines of Kaiba do you do? Even over the weekend.
Yeah, and people might think it's funny when they're like, "Hey Kaiba," and like it's as if they're annoying me. No, maybe when I'm like, I don't know,
Oh, do you think people are teasing
in the restroom?
that was a really strange. Yeah,
it was.
That
That's not the best
line
time to ask me
was
for an
not
autograph. Then,
well observed. No,
but
and I will never do it again. I'm sorry.
Well, there you go. But I do appreciate when someone does recognize that, and I get to turn on the Kaiba and say some quick little quip to them.
Sure.
And it makes their day. Like, it makes my day too.
Oh my God, it's so fun. And just being able to do a quote from the show and seeing somebody, whether it's a kid or an adult with the kid inside of them, just sort of light up. I mean, it's sort of like it's a little magic button that you and only you get to press. It's great. And I've riffed so much as the Pharaoh, saying, because people often are like, "Could you say something encouraging to a friend of mine who's or whatever?" Maybe I'm always happy to do it. So, and Yugi as well. I have no problem if we were in an improv and they said, "Okay, Dan, you get to play Tem, the Pharaoh, and Yugi." I'd be like, "Sure, all day long. Show me what you got." I feel like I really know those guys.
Totally. People ask if we ad-libbed so many of our lines, and there's definitely times we would flip something around or make.
But obviously,
make a
dubbing is
suggestion.
such a
right,
but not a lot of that going on for the show per se. Yeah.
Right. If not, if the gameplay aside, because we would not be able to riff on that as much.
No.
Because we don't understand that as much.
There's no room for it. Yeah.
Right.
We wouldn't know how to do it. Yeah.
If either one of us were asked to, hey, we didn't have a chance to write Kaiba's like other dialogue in this show. Can you
Right.
just ad-lib it? I'd be like, just let me see how many lip flaps are in that line. And yes, I can. You know, it's like I could
Right.
ad-lib my way through pretty much any episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! As long as it didn't involve talking about what card did what.
Specific cards,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
doing things.
Right. Yes.
So, with the trading card game at
Yes.
its 25th anniversary,
Mm-hmm.
it makes me also think about the game itself,
Yeah.
and a lot of that is what comes to mind is my admiration for the people who actually play it so well, who I get to meet when with those tournaments. But the other thing is the amazing artwork.
Oh, yeah.
So much cool artwork. And it's definitely edgier than what Pokemon was doing, not to frown on Pokemon at
Right.
all. It's just a different feeling. It's a different flavor.
Oh yeah, I
And-
love it, and that's why I always ask when I'm asked to sign a card. I always
Yeah.
ask, do you want it on the art or in the text box?
For sure.
Because I sometimes feel guilty writing my name over some of the art.
I slant it. I'm like, I usually sign in the box. I'm already prejudicing the
Right,
whole
right.
outcome.
But then I get
And
the
they're
one
like,
guy
"Oh,
who's
yeah,
a
that's
player,
cool."
right? He's a player. He's like, no, you can't
Oh,
go
yeah,
to
sure.
text because then I can't
You
use
can't.
it. And I'm like, oh, sorry.
Yeah. You got to ask. You got to
Right.
ask because you don't want to upset the actual duelist.
But yeah, the artwork
no.
is amazing.
Yeah. Those designs are really off the hook, and of course everything has a range of how awesome it is. But I've never seen a card that I thought was dumb looking, and it's
No.
just like everything is either pretty good or really friggin' cool.
Yeah, and I definitely have to give a lot of credit to the fans who recognize every, iteration of like every card. It's like, that's the blah blah
yeah.
blah Blue Eyes White Dragon that was
Sure.
done by, and I'm like, how
Right.
do you?
That
I
was
mean,
released
I guess
for this event with
yeah,
that thing, and
I guess
this is
if
the
I
foil version
played
of it,
as as much as they
Right.
did, I would understand. But yeah, no, it is pretty cool. I've done some really cool multi signatures where I did 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons, and then the fourth one I ripped in half, and someone put them all in a plexiglass like display case. And I was like, you really want me to rip that in half? They're like, oh, it's not a valuable one, but it's the idea. It's from the show. Do it like that. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like really great ideas. And then the big cards, like I think we had them at one of the tournaments too.
Oh yeah, I know. What
Where
you mean.
you can play the giant card version.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fun live duel. Like have us on stage where we actually had to physically lift 3x5 and I mean like 3 foot by 5 foot giant cards and laying them down on the field.
That's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
But also with the card game, probably the story we hear the most runs along the lines of, I met so many of my best friends
Yeah.
through playing this game.
Yeah. It's such a great social tool for that. I mean, I think board games and things like that and these sort of get-together spots have really come back, right?
Yes,
For a long
yes.
time, that's all we did, and then we all went into our video game world. And of course, I'm a gamer, so I get that.
Sure.
But the board games and actually getting back together with like people, like
Yeah.
in front of you,
Yeah.
has become the thing again.
Yeah.
Yu-Gi-Oh's been doing that. Like they existed from for 25 years doing that. So
Yeah,
it's like now
yeah.
people are coming back around to it, but that community has been solid for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean from the anime conventions to the card game tournaments, it's a great way to meet people. And I remember even there was a big push to sort of try to include more women playing, which I thought was really cool. And I've definitely signed a couple of like trophies and things like that have been given to me by women fans, and I think that's cool too. Just that arena can be almost the same kind of quirky, cool diversity that we experience in the conventions. And I hope that it gets to be that way, because it's really a lot of fun. For those of you who are listening who are like, oh, yeah, I play a little bit with my friends, but I'm really not that good. And you know what? There is a level of the tournament play for everyone. Every level, whatever you think of yourself in terms of like, oh, I'm really not that good a player. I'm not really that competitive as a person.
Sure.
It's just a cool hang.
Oh yeah,
it really is.
Yeah. And the ability to understand something, to be all into something, geeked up on something, and then find somebody who else is. It's like you have your own language.
Yeah.
And you create your own little country with the other people that you involve around each other, and it's like this island of people that you feel are part of your group, and not to otherize, but just feeling like you all are into the same thing. And that's wonderful, and it's especially great when I hear stories about that happening for people who have had, for whatever reason, a hard time creating those social connections, especially in their earlier years. Sometimes that has to do with, there's a lot of actually, I don't mean to say a lot as if I should know the exact proportion, but I feel like I meet a disproportionate amount of people who have a military background. Either they're currently serving, or they grew up in a family that served, or both.
Yeah.
And so moving around a lot, it's hard to make friends.
That's a good point. Yeah,
I don't know that it's necessarily hard to make friends, but you have to do it often.
Yeah.
Right? And and I've heard well over many times that Yu-Gi-Oh! Was something that helped to create that first conversation and create those connections.
Yeah, and if you traveled around with your own deck that you made, whatever, then you ran into somebody else who, it's definitely something you could travel with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but that's interesting that you pointed that out, because now that you mentioned that, yes, that is true. I've experienced that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who are on the spectrum and say, hey, I'm on the spectrum, and this has been something that's really helped with me creating those kinds of relationships and helped in other ways as well. So,
definitely. One of the funny things I like to do when I am at one of the live duels is because sometimes people don't recognize me because I'm a voice actor, right? They don't recognize what.
That's one of the things I love about being a voice.
So
person.
I'll walk around the floor, just watching people play, and I'll gradually
make fun of them.
No.
Tell them they're a third-rate duelist.
I'll sneak up behind them and I'll look over and I'll go, "Are you really going to play that card?" And then they look up at me and then they do a double take. And once they realize, it's just fun to do it subtly like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great.
I don't think I have the courage to do that.
Oh, no, you got to do it.
Like, who are you again?
Well, sometimes I get the triple take of like, who are you? Get out of here. Oh, wait, you're Kaiba. But yeah, no, just a great environment and a lot of fun. And that also, for the two of us, especially this year, I think it's also kind of cool that, we do make appearances and we try to do as much as we can, also balancing home life and things like that.
Sure.
But this year, like I think as part of the entire celebration of this, we're out on the road a lot more than I think we've ever been, and I feel like that's kind of
certainly
part
more
of the
than I have been.
But even me, the guy that's like, I live at the airport. We are definitely, out there this year, and I just feel like this is the year to really celebrate it. So, going to these different cities and meeting all these fans, I look forward to celebrating the 25th anniversary with all of these people. It's fun. It means a lot. We are humbled to be part of something like this.
Yes, exactly.
It's something as
we
an
fully
actor,
understand. We are not the creation point for this. We're just happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, and being the actor, I'm proud of the way we interpreted those characters. That's definitely something that I will say, I wear that as a badge. But we also were we're lucky that we were able to audition and be part of that particular show, and this particular community, because it is so supportive, and it does have
Yes.
longevity.
Yes.
Even long after we're both gone, it's like there's.
I certainly hope so.
These characters, the show, the game. I just feel like, wow, I really didn't think we would be involved with something that was this good for this long in this crazy entertainment world we're in.
Right. And I think one of those enduring elements is something we touched on previously, but the theme of friendship and the theme of finding a relationship where you both gain something and give something is, and then ultimately have the strength and courage to let one of the things you hold most dear go. That's a really, really solid hero's journey mythical arc, right? It covers a lot of the bases that we go in the stages that we go through in life. And I think it's also no accident that the setting of these friends in high school being, in a sense, kind of code to everyone out there, that's the time of your life where you really are aware of your own becoming. When you're a kid, you're less aware of it. When you're an adolescent, you can't help but be aware of it. Right. Sometimes painfully so.
Yeah.
And so it really speaks to those mythic and sort of timeless issues of who am I going to become, under what conditions, who am I going to include in my life, in my heart, and what do I do when facing a challenge, and how do I grow beyond what I currently am?
Yeah, very well.
The show actually has all those things in it.
Yeah.
Know?
Well,
and
the show has.
Of course, it's talking about the card game.
Yeah.
And this stuff too. Yeah.
But the show has those elements, and what's amazing to me is that our lives ran that parallel. Our friendships, all of the people that are playing those characters who are friends.
Yeah.
Our friendships have grown so much from working on this show.
Sure.
And I wonder if, like, Takahashi is like, well, that was the point, right? Like, everyone involved, but if you think about the big picture, right? And yes, people always, they kid around about, oh, it's about friendship and this and that. Okay, well, let's step back and just think of it as the big picture here. The entire message of how people interact with each other and that bond of friendship from the real life people that are putting the show together to the characters in the show.
Oh yeah, sure.
To the people participating in the tournaments. Like all of those things, the common denominator is it's all based on interaction with other people. It's all based on friendship. And I just wonder if Takahashi was thinking total big picture when creating these characters.
Maybe so. I mean, we can never go back into his mind, but it wouldn't surprise me if he was coming from that sort of perspective.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. I'd like to believe that he sees that he saw that. I want to believe that he was like, I hope it gets to this point. And after 25 years, at least with the card game, I think that's what's going on.
Well, and I contribute this not to be morose or morbid, but certainly in reflection of the way he passed on.
Yes.
He's thinking about others.
Of course. That's why I really believe that this thread that runs through all of this is not just a coincidence.
No, I don't think so at all. No. Yeah. And I think it's also maybe, going back to the timeless idea, no accident that he chooses this ancient Egyptian motif or setting or theme. That's most people's reference point for the oldest culture we can think of.
Yeah,
right.
True.
The way back when was ancient Egypt. That's when we think of civilization starting.
Yeah.
There's currently evidence to the contrary, but that doesn't take anything away from how that calls our mind to this sense of where we've come from and where we're going. And I think Takahashi probably understood on a fundamental level that value of, and in some ways it's so simple, the value of friendship. I think we're just lucky to be a part of something that continues that idea so well, so fervently, so simply.
Yes. Yeah.
When the atmosphere of the convention, and this goes way beyond Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, but there's never been so consistently so many people so willing to be good to each other that I've seen
Yes.
in my lifetime.
Yep.
Hundreds of people, thousands of people that are happy to be there and with each other.
Yes, and that the kindness is something that I've said this before, but I really think it's a template on how we could behave.
Yes, yeah.
In outside of the convention world, and talking about the friendship stuff too. As I was scrolling through those episodes.
Yes.
And a little synopsis, it just reminded me of that. Because I constantly think about the true relationship between the Pharaoh and Kaiba, and that whole rivalry, in modern day, and what their relationship was in the past. But as you scroll through the episode and you read these little synopsis, it's what always stood out to me as I was glancing through this was there would be these moments of Yugi and Kaiba team up to do this. Yeah. Yugi and Kaiba do this. Yugi must save Kaiba from that. Kaiba sacrifices himself for this. And I'm like, when it's every 5 or 6 episodes, maybe it's not as clear. But when you're scrolling like that and you're reading and these things pop out like that, you're like, right. Wait a second. This is not very hard to miss. They work together a lot.
These aren't enemies.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool in revisiting that.
That is cool. That's really cool. Another cool thing I would like to throw into the conversation.
Yeah.
So this happens to be called the Heart of the Cards.
Right.
And here we're celebrating the card game. But in this podcast, we have made clear that it's a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what you're dealt. So putting that tagline, that log line, onto the experience that Sensei Takahashi went through.
Right.
His creativity, his willingness to see it through. And you could maybe describe that as courage, and perhaps you could also describe that as desperation.
Mm-hmm.
I know that you understand as a fellow creative, it's like we can't help but want to create what we create.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a sense, we're sort of stuck with it. And and maybe it leads to things that we can, contribute to the people and to the world around us with, and also, hopefully support ourselves with. But with Takahashi, being able to commit to that idea and consistently deliver on its merits, page after page, to create something that we have now is extraordinary, is not a big enough word. It's remarkable, it's unusual, it's certainly not something you see all the time. And this is in contrast to, keep in mind, Spider-Man, one of my favorite characters, and Batman, one of my favorite characters, those weren't created by one guy.
Right.
Who did all of the storytelling. Right?
Yes, right.
So that's not a diminishment of those characters. But so what Takahashi did, to me, is even more singularly impressive.
Yeah, and of course, we were lucky enough to have met him. And learned that he was truly a fan of the genre.
Yeah.
And as two people who are both considered, I would say, geeky, nerdy, fans of that kind of stuff, right? And creative, it was kind of cool to see that someone who was behind such a gigantic machine of this right, the creation of Yu-Gi-Oh, was himself a fan of comics and anime and manga and the car. He was into it.
Yeah,
and there's not a lot of people that are behind the scenes that maintained that once they reached the success level, right?
For lack of a better term, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance leading up to whether or not we were even going to be able to interact with him in person.
That is true. That is true.
I don't say that in a disparaging way, but there were levels of checking to make sure it was going to happen and that sort of a thing. And so it wouldn't be, if this were like some sort of a movie, you being in that circumstance, it wouldn't be unusual for you to anticipate that once you get to the final stage, you're still dealing with somebody who is perhaps aloof or austere or
don't make eye contact with him. That
exactly,
kind of thing.
held at arm's length. He didn't have any of that energy.
Not at all.
If anything, and this is complimenting what you're saying, is it felt like he was at ease with us. I was at ease. He was not creating any sort of barriers.
No,
right?
Not at all.
And it was a brief interaction, but it was still just the energy, you got. And I didn't feel like he was the kind of person who would, just be nice and put on a persona and he didn't feel fakey,
No. And how it also seemed like he was truly excited to meet two people that brought life to his creation.
Yeah.
And it was so flattering. I felt like if the rest of the group of people that were in that room were not there with us, that the three of us would have had dinner together.
That would have been wonderful. Yeah,
but I mean, it was that kind of vibe. And for those who never had the opportunity to be around him, and even though it was a brief encounter that way, just so you know who was behind all of this and the type of personality you're talking about. And maybe that will inspire people too. It's like you also have to enjoy your own craft. Enjoy it. It might be a lot of work, and it might be times where you're frustrated with the writer's block or whatever, or whatever it is, or running into brick walls of nobody wants to see what I'm doing or paying attention to anything that I'm creating. But you know what? The person that you really need to please is yourself with that stuff. And if you enjoy creating it, then you're light years ahead of everybody else. So this was a person that enjoyed it, and you could tell. And it's just so great that, the card game is 25 years old, and the show is getting close to that. And the manga's even older.
I understand how somebody might look at that and say, "Isn't that so self-serving?" Right? Because you're just doing what you like, and it's also true that if you share your passions, they can be kind of infectious.
Mm-hmm.
And we started this podcast with actually honoring Kazuki Takahashi.
Yep.
But then we moved on to the hero's journey, and Joseph Campbell, who coined that phrase, and others have observed these cycles as well. But Joseph Campbell said that in order to save the world, you really just have to save yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're living your life in a way that you feel is vitalized and you're connected to the things that are meaningful to you, and that would include obviously laboring on a creative work. Then yes, it is not only just good for you, but for the people around you. And being able to be an example of somebody who had the courage and survived the desperation is also an encouraging example to people out there who may do well to follow in those footsteps.
Well said. And I think on that note, I'm going to raise my Blue Eyes White Dragon, and I'm going to toast you.
oh, thank God.
I'm not going to play it. I'm going to toast you and congratulate Yu-Gi-Oh! The card game on 25 years.
I will raise my Dark Magician and clink that glass.
There it is. Yes. Fantastic.
Well, it's always a privilege to have a chance to speak with you, Eric.
You as well, Dan?
And we are so privileged to be able to discuss being a part of this community in such a unique way. And we're so grateful to have had the times that we've had and to meet the people who have become dear friends and the people that we meet who are becoming new friends. And it's just a really wholesome and wonderful thing to be a part of. And we look forward to the next time that we can share with you, everybody out there who's been following the Heart of the Cards. Thank you so much. We know that we've not been releasing episodes as frequently as possible, but I promise you we are still in the game. And thank you for following. Thank you for contributing on our Patreon. That means a lot to us as well. And anytime you like and subscribe or encourage others to do so, that helps. And all of your comments help the algorithm as well. We all know how important the algorithm is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, Eric and I will look forward to the next time we can share a conversation about creativity, inspiration, and dealing with what we're dealt. And happy 25th, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Happy 25th.
Thanks for listening to The Heart of the Cards with Dan Green and Eric Stuart. We hope this conversation in some way spoke to you. Whatever your journey, we look forward to crossing paths again in the next episode. This is Veronica Taylor, and on behalf of Andromeda Productions, we wish you well.
Andromeda, always a sound choice.